Donald Trump Jr. received a suspicious package of white powder in the mail, and I will let you finish the joke about white powder and Don Jr. for you. This is a serious story. We might joke around a little bit on the edges just because thankfully nothing actually happened to him. It was not actually a deadly substance. Don Jr. is gonna be just fine. And stay tuned for one little thing I'm gonna remind you of about Don Jr. But for right now, he is the victim here, okay? And I don't like seeing anything like this happen. I don't like seeing it in the 95 times out of 100 that it happens to a Democrat. And I don't like seeing it in the 5 times out of 100 that it happens to a Republican. Do not send dangerous stuff to notable figures in politics. Don't send stuff that looks like it might be dangerous. It's bad for a democracy. Before we continue with the story, we depend on members to keep on going. Don't wait. Click join now on YouTube. In this case, it wasn't deadly. They said the test results came up inconclusive, but it wasn't actually a threat. Regardless, don't do it. Don't send bizarre notes filled with conspiratorial nonsense that I am not going to read on the air because I don't want to encourage people to do this. But here is what Don Jr. said and has the right to say because he and his family were targeted this way. He said, it's just become a little bit too commonplace that this sort of stuff happens. Clearly, if this happens to a prominent Democrat, it wouldn't be tolerated and would drive news coverage for weeks. The media would blame all Republicans and force them to answer for it. But since it's me, radical haters on the left will largely get a free pass and the media will barely flinch. Well, first of all, we are covering it. Second of all, it's one event. I'm gonna remind you of one that drove news coverage for weeks. But first, I'm gonna remind you of something else because what Don Jr. is in the right here is saying you should not, just because I'm in politics, why should like my safety be threatened? It's not a joke, it's serious. And Don Jr. is right. And I wish that he could have told that to a Don Jr. of the past, who I will remind you, repeatedly mocked Paul Pelosi, whose skull was cracked open with a hammer. The guy didn't mail him a hammer. The guy didn't mail him something that looked like a hammer. He broke into his house so he could murder Nancy Pelosi, and instead he nearly murdered Paul Pelosi. And Don Jr. thought it was the funniest thing ever. And so he repeatedly joked about it on social media. But now that it's targeting him, suddenly this is how he's going to attack the left. And I will say, if you're talking about something that dominated the news for weeks, I remember a case like this that dominated the news for weeks. It was Cesar Sayoc, who mailed pipe bombs to a long list of Democrats, a bizarre assortment of names straight out of Donald Trump's stump speeches. Did Don Jr. talk about how horrific that was and tell MAGA people to not do that? I don't remember it. Okay, it seems inconsistent with the guy who thinks it's hilarious when an old man's skull gets cracked open. But anyway, don't send powder to people in politics. Danielle, what do you think?
I mean, he should probably check his DoorDash account. That's what I think about Don Jr. receiving white powder. Like, I don't care because all of the things that you have said, Don Jr. egged on, cheered on, or stayed silent about. There was nothing funny about the attack on Paul Pelosi that cost him months in hospital. There was nothing funny about the pipe bombs that were mailed by Cesar Sayoc. There's nothing funny. And what I think is ridiculous is, again, the responsibility of journalists when covering this story to do exactly what it is that you did, which is hold up the side by side and ask Don Jr., oh, so now that it's happened to you, do you want to course correct or do you want to, go back in time and restate the things that you said and give him an opportunity to do so?
100%. And also make clear in a way that those on the right would never make clear. I am comparing this to point out a hypocrisy. It does not justify sending stuff like this to Don Jr. I'm going to be very clear about that. No one in right-wing media ever will be.